Everyone, good morning. Welcome to week 6 here at Calvary University. Just a few weeks left till we have fall break. Hope everything's going well for y'all. I have a couple announcements today. First off, registration for spring semester is gearing up. If you're a senior with more than 90 credits, you can go ahead and register for spring classes. Juniors with 60 to 90 credits, registration will start on October 1st. Sophomores, 30 to 60 credits, registration will start October 15th. And freshmen, registration will start on the 30th of October. Still have some time for that, but just letting you guys know. Another announcement, tonight in the cafeteria at 6:15, we would appreciate your help setting up tables and chairs for President's Dinner. President's Dinner will be on Thursday. It's a fundraising event for Calvary, and it's going to be really packed this year. We're going to have a lot of people coming in. So if we could have your help setting up tables, chairs tonight after supper, we'd really appreciate that. Speaking of the cafeteria, there is a cafeteria position open. If you want to work at the cafeteria, it's an on-campus job, and Joe is pretty good to work with, I've heard. So that's an opportunity for you guys. And then let's just get into our speaker for today. As you may be aware, Dr. Tim Hange will be our speaker for today. He is going to be talking about AI and how we think biblically about that. A few items of interest about Dr. Hange. He is the English Department Chair and the TESOL Studies Coordinator at Calvary. He was a missionary to Russia for 8 years, and they served in educational missions. He was a former software engineer and systems analyst with 15 years of experience working with companies like IBM and T-Mobile. And he is a father of 4 and a grandfather of 4. And if you have not noticed, he's a very strong advocate of the color black. Thank you all. Welcome, Dr. Tim Hange.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that introduction, although you could have just gone with the black. That would have worked. So, hey, what's up, Levi? See ya. All right. So, thinking biblically and practically about AI. All right. I know. So I have to kind of make a deal with you up front. I know what some of you are probably thinking at this moment. So let me just give you a few requests. Okay, first of all, some of you are thinking, oh no, here it comes, the big don't use AI to do your work talk, the whole don't plagiarize, the whole be honest talk. Okay, listen, there will be some of that in here incidentally, but I want to assure you, first of all, that that's not the main purpose of this talk, okay? So I'm asking you, will you please sort of like give me the chance to not, will you please assume that I'm not preaching at you about not cheating, okay? Because that would be really minimizing for what we're trying to do today. I am trying to help you today. I'm trying to help you in some very practical ways, and I'm trying to help you in some very spiritual ways. And in fact, I'm going to go up here for a moment. I did it, didn't I? Dan told me, point it there, don't point it there. But I got it to bounce, apparently. Okay, so our agenda here is, one, we're going to be talking actually about some very practical career advice. I'm curious, and there is no shame in any of this. This is just, look, you saw my background. I wasn't a ministry guy for most of my career until I went to the mission field, right? So how many of you here would say that you probably don't see yourself working in a church or ministry in the future, although you certainly want to take Christian worldview wherever you go. You're going to be in business. You're going to be doing something other than being in church work. How many of you would say that? Okay. How many of you would say, no, I'm going to be doing church ministry work, that kind of thing? Okay. How many of you didn't raise your hands because you just generally don't raise your hands at this sort of thing? Wait, I can't. But then that wouldn't, never mind. Okay, so, all right, so, yeah, I'm gearing this. You have to understand. I've worked in a lot of, I guess what people would say, secular environments. So I have a lot of career advice for you here, but this will also apply to ministry. We're also very concerned spiritually. I'm very concerned about, if I'll just lay this out, about what wrong AI usage can do to harm the image of God in you. That sounds heavy, that sounds deep, but that's actually more what I'm concerned about. This isn't about you cheating or taking shortcuts per se. This is about what could happen inside your mind and inside your soul if you use AI wrongly. Am I insinuating there's a right way to use AI? We'll find that out in a moment. Okay, back to my little request regarding your speaker. The other thing I would ask of you, if you would try not to do this, if you could not look at this 57-year-old guy with gray hair and think, oh no, what's he know about this stuff? You know, we're the digital natives. Don't get me started on that, actually. The tech people from my generation, I think, are actually a lot more. Never mind, I won't compete with you guys. But I built a lot of software in my career. I understand how systems work. The AI thing is something I've been following quite closely. And if you want to know the truth, use quite extensively. I have a subscription to Claude. I regularly use Claude for a lot of my side work in which I do educational consulting and teaching. Claude saves me a lot of time, and I use Claude rightly, and we're going to be talking about this. I've used Gemini on a number of occasions. It does really good with some of the graphics and design that I need because I really stink at graphic design. And I have obviously used ChatGPT. I've used a number of other platforms for other different purposes, okay? So this is something that I actually do integrate into my world. The other thing that if I'm going to put this kind of a disclaimer, this is not the AI is going to take over the world and kill us all and, stand up and be the Antichrist and all this kind of thing. Look, I don't, that's not my, I tend to know the hype that comes with tech, and I tend to really downplay that. Okay, so this is, I hope you'll take this as a reasonable talk from somebody who is at least decently versed in tech, okay? Regarding, I'm going to give a disclaimer about CU. I'm going to share a couple of things today that, how you doing over there, Dr. Granados? That might not, things I share are my views, not CU's views, okay? That's the disclaimer. All right, now let's move on. So obviously I'm maybe a little bit nervous, and this is a very anxiety-inducing topic. So I do want to just go ahead. I know you guys listen to some worship music. You guys mind if we just sort of center by playing a worship song and just giving the words a chance to settle in? Just about 2 minutes of one, and then we will move on. So I know it sounds strange, but it's just something I really wanted to do today. Dan, can you cue that up for me, please?
The storm is wild, the waves they rise. My heart is small beneath the skies. I call your name through the wind that howls. You hear me still, you calm my doubts. Oh, you are steady when I sway. Oh, you are light in darkest gray. Jesus, you're the anchor of my soul. When the tides rush in, you make me whole. You hold me close when the waters roll. Jesus, you're the anchor of my soul. The night is long, the shadows fall. I feel so weak, I feel so small. But in the quiet, your voice, it speaks. A whisper strong and lifts the weak. Oh, you are peace when fear invades. Oh, you are love that never fades. Jesus, you're the anchor.
What do you guys think? Good worship song? Touching? Does Mr. Haynes have something up his sleeve? Fully AI generated. generated it last week using suno.com. All I did, and you may wonder, well, Ms. Strange, didn't you put a lot of work into it, like the lyrics and everything? No, not one bit. My only prompt was, give me a worship song that talks about trusting God in difficult times, female vocalist, and I said a few more things just about the mood of the music, and clicked. About 30 seconds later, several variations of this song generated, and you have it. Now, I want to ask you a question, and be honest, because I'm sure a lot of you out there are I know the bias. You want to say, oh, I knew that. I knew it was AI. I could tell, right? I couldn't have told, right? If I were in the cafe downstairs and this was playing, I'd say, oh, it sounds like a nice little song, right? And I don't know if it creeps you out that without even my direction, she goes with Jesus as the anchor of my soul, putting these words together, okay? And so it's fascinating, and this gets to a point that we're going to be talking about how AI is now at the level where it can produce average work. So it's getting to that level in a lot of different areas. In some areas, it's ahead of others. I would say in music, it's getting to that point where it can produce average things. And you might think, well, what good is average? Oh, average is pretty good. A lot of people get paid for average in this world. Okay? So but before we move on, though, I do think it's important to contrast. Dan, can you cue up the video that will help, or the audio? This one will help you kind of celebrate. I don't know if you noticed, the voice did sound a little bit mechanical. Okay, so let's hear like more of a celebration of the human voice. This is not a Christian song. You guys know a lot of the music I listen to isn't Christian, but yeah, go ahead and play this one. Contrast, right, of maybe an AI and human voice, except that was fully AI generated. That's with the pro version of Suno that's able to do a whole lot more than the one that I have, which is free. And that's problematic for me because I like this song. Like, this song is a little above average to me. I mean, I listen to a lot of genres, but for indie pop, boy, that's a pretty good song. And now, the lyrics, the reason I didn't play the whole thing was, and who generated this one? I watched it be generated by, oh my goodness, the name just escapes me, Rick Beato. You guys, anybody watch Rick Beato on YouTube? Oh, he's like the premier analyst. His videos are really fun. But he generated this, and there was a piece on CBS News about this, and you watched him on live TV generate this. It took him about 15 seconds with a prompt on his pro account of Suno. So, why is all this important? Okay, first let's talk about what is AI, and then we're going to process through a little bit of what we just experienced. AI is primarily built around a large language model. Old AI used to be rules-based. Okay, and here's where you have to listen to a little story from my life. At 16 years old, not far from here, a few miles from here, I was sitting on my Commodore 64 computer, which none of you probably know what that is, programming my little heart out because, honestly, I like computers a lot more than people at this stage in my life. And, except my wife who I was dating, but never mind. Okay, the point is, back in this day, we didn't have internet. And for programmers like me, we subscribe to these nerdy magazines. And in the back of one of these nerdy magazines, all of them, they had like code that you could code in to get programs. I coded in Eliza. Eliza was the first, to my knowledge, chatbot. You can look her up online. And it was very primitive. It was like, hello, Eliza. Hello, how are you? What would you like to talk about today? I'd like to talk about this. Oh, well, tell me more about this, she would say. And then you would, but the conversation was really mechanical. And I realized that to make Eliza more human-like, what I was going to have to do is I was going to have to program a whole lot of rules and exceptions. And I worked on this for weeks. I created different categories, like I try to have her recognize certain words as humorous, certain words as like questioning, certain words, and so I created all these context categories, but it was all rule-based, right? And that was the problem, is that think about any conversation you can have with anybody. You can't possibly program to account for everything in a rule-based method. If they say this, then I'll say that, and then if they say that, then I'll say this. It's impossible to do. And I gave up a few weeks later, realizing that AI would never be able to have anything that approximates a real conversation with a human being. Which is why I was very skeptical when I first sat down in front of ChatGPT and very blown away at what happened next. Because they figured it out. What they said was, okay, what we need is something statistical. What we need to do is tell the computer, you're given this question, and now based upon all the words here, what would statistically be, the large language model is based on having a data dump of all the information you can get your hands on, the entire internet, basically. Okay, and that's what ChatGPT has done now in its 5th iteration. So the large language models say, okay, statistically, what should you say next? What would this person expect you to say next based on this? And then it says it. Furthermore, the programmers coded in a learning capability to say, okay, based on people's feedback to you, these are positive markers, these are negative markers. Adjust what you say accordingly, modify the statistics engine. The earlier versions of ChatGPT, you guys know, I've talked about them. I found them to be bland, generic. People were flooding the internet with blah, 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 blah text, and some people still are, but here's the thing. It's gotten better. It's gotten pretty good. Not ChatGPT per se. I have spent hours the last couple of weeks talking with an AI chatbot about the topics I chose were philosophy. I didn't go religion. Philosophy and literature. It recommended to me yesterday that I read the story Ward Number 6 by Anton Pavlovich Chekhov. I read it, was destroyed by it, as I always am, by Chekhov, and then had a pretty average conversation with it. I know it sounds weird, right? But when you consider that I'm talking to a machine, well, compared to what I would talk to most people, I would have to say it would be above average about the meaning of this thing. And I questioned it, and it questioned me back. And when we first started talking, by the way, it would compliment me on everything. And I said, look, I really don't want flattery. That's not why I'm here. I actually want you to question and challenge my views. It was doing it pretty well. Surprisingly well. It would hallucinate sometimes. But what's happening now is that in addition to all of this, we have brought in training into the environment. In other words, there are people, this company is hiring people because they have categories like literature and philosophy, to talk to the AI and train it using its self-learning to have better conversations in those areas. And it's working. So, and we are now reaching the point, and we're very close to this point, where AI, I believe, is going to make the leap to not self-aware, no, I'm not saying that, but agentive. In other words, you're going to be able to assign it tasks, and it will autonomously work on those, okay? This is already happening, guys. This is here and now, okay? So, sorry if this is anxiety-inducing. You want to listen to that song again? Does that help? No, never mind. Let's not do that. Okay, so we have all these major AI companies and their CEOs. By the way, Claude did this. It's not that great, but I had Gemini do a version of it. And the reason I'm showing these to you is I'll come back to this later. The importance of being able to actually work with the AI and query it means you have to know your stuff, okay? If I knew my stuff, so Adam, where are you, Adam? Raise that hand. Adam, if Adam were querying Claude and he would get this result back, and he'd say, okay, Claude, change these fonts. He knows about graphic design, so he's going to understand more about contrast, repetition, proximity, things like this, and color schemes, et cetera. He's going to be able to query it and make this a whole lot better because he knows his stuff. Little preview. This is why you need to know your stuff before you start using AI. Okay? Because if you don't, you're not going to have anything to offer in the future if you're average. And this is because this is what is happening. How to survive? First of all, a case for this. The Bible is full of practical wisdom. Okay? You're thinking, well, I thought this was going to be a spiritual talk today. It is. Okay? The Bible tells you a lot. If you read through the book of Proverbs, especially, about practical advice for life and even business, okay? There is something that, Proverbs 24:3, by wisdom a house is built. This is an interesting passage. When David is first taking his rule, all these people are coming from all over the kingdom to help him, to throw their support behind him, including the men of Issachar. I love this passage. Of Issachar, it says, they're polling who came. Men who had understanding of the times and knew what Israel ought to do. Understanding of the times gives you knowledge about what to do. Okay? And I think it's really important that you guys understand the times. And these are some of the things that you need to understand. The old reality was that the world needed average thinkers. Right? You could go to college, you could mess around, you could do what I did when I flunked out my first time. Not the second time. The second time, I didn't flunk out the second time. The second time I went back and I did it right. But the first time, I was a kid. I was playing D&D with my friends. I flunked out, but I could have gone back and just done enough to get by and been average, right? And I would have gotten an average job. Look, you guys could in the business program, you could just sort of slough off, do enough of the work to get, B's in your classes or whatever. You get out and, I don't know, you can get a job somewhere, as a doing some kind of paperwork for an insurance company or doing some bookkeeping work or something like that. And there are plenty of average jobs for average people. Gone. These are going away. If you're in any kind of knowledge industry, these jobs are going to be gone. This is my view. I think it is already happening. Okay? AI isn't fully agentive yet. One of my English students last year, outside of Calvary, lost her job in an accounting department because they could hire fewer people to do more work because of AI use. So it's going to get you in that way. It gets worse than this because not only can AI do average work, assisted right now, but not only can AI do average work in a lot of areas, and AI makes your average work obsolete, but because of this reality, because anybody can query, anybody who knows how to query AI can query AI to get an average result. They can look at that and look at your work and say, you're not even average. How you guys doing so far? This is a real inspiring talk, isn't it? Yeah. Well, it's the hard truth. AI brutally reveals if you're below average. You're not going to fool the market. Okay? Now, if you use AI wrongly, you will be below average. This isn't I've done fooling you or tricking you. This is like an actual video, so it's not AI generated. Dan, can you play Justin Sung's video here? He says this much. You are making yourself unemployable. Okay, let me show you how this works. When your brain encounters a problem, you have a choice. If you want to solve that problem, you have to apply your brain. What does that look like? You're going to gather information, you're going to research, you're going to analyze, you're going to internalize knowledge, you're going to connect to the existing stuff you already know, you're going to deal with different contexts, you're going to synthesize, you're going to create a solution. People who do that, their brain capacity expands. Okay? That EEG is going to show all sorts of expansion in that person's brain. Now, they produce a product usually, right? It'll be some report of what they know, or it'll be a song, or it'll be some other product that they produce. All right? This is what you do when you do what we call cognitive offloading to AI. You encounter a problem, you say, AI, do this for me. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you're a business major here, and then you go to a company, and they ask you to do a market research for a product. They say, hey, we're thinking about releasing this product. We need you to do market research. And you're like, I don't know how to do that. I don't really pay attention in my classes. I don't know, ChatGPT, I got this product. Give me some market research on it. And it gives you some average market research on that product, okay? Which probably you'd need to query it a bit more than that to get average. You offload it. You end up producing an average product. Your boss might look at it and go, huh, what if you used AI to do this? There goes your, the start of the downhill with your boss. And your brain capacity did not expand, and you're going to be less able to deal with that problem the next. See, guys, you don't realize this. I used to be where you are. Like, I understand what it's like to be offered shortcuts, because before AI, there were also shortcuts. What I'm telling you is this. Anybody that would let their body go completely is going to end up being morbidly obese, and it's visible and physical that they've let themselves go and that they cannot, say, be on a sports team or something like that, right? Now, that said, we do the same thing with our brains. And what you think is, but I can just turn that on. I can just flick that back on. No, you can't. That's what these studies are showing. You become so dependent on it, you can't turn it off. Tech is already doing this to us, guys. And I can point at you, but I feel the pull too of sitting there at home, and instead of picking up that book and getting an enriching experience, we're turning our brains off, right? This is making it worse, and it's making us unemployable in the new economy, okay? And I can't do a good Jeff Goldblum, but I'll tell you the problem. This is the old Jurassic Park. With the scientific power that you're using here, it didn't require any discipline to attain it, okay? You read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, right? And this could be at two levels. The person using ChatGPT, a lot of the AI companies are releasing stuff on large language models without thinking about what it does to the public. Some of the Grammarly ads tick me off so much because they encourage you to do exactly this. And this is where it gets spiritual, guys. You are made in the image of God. I got to have something I can slam. You are made in the image of God. How dare you do that to your mind? What do you think the image of God is? Your good looks? No, it is your sentience, it is your thinking, it is your capacity to reason, your will, your creativity, to be everything that the animals are not, right? That is the image of God in you. How dare you destroy it with your laziness? And that finger points at me too. I have to be on guard with it because the shortcut's always available to me as well. And sometimes it's tempting. And sometimes we're well-meaning and we don't know whether what we're doing crosses a line or not. We have to be thinking about this stuff, guys. We have to be thinking about this stuff. Sorry, I'm going to, spiritual ramifications. You were made to master the earth, it says in Genesis 1:28. God gave Adam and Eve the earth and said, it is yours to master. Yours to manage, yours to subdue and to control. This is the first time we've been offered a tool where we're basically like, yeah, I know, God, it's just a lot of work to, hey, ChatGPT, can you do it for me? Right? Your mind is a big part. Yeah, sorry, I did that one. Proverbs 4:5. Get wisdom, get insight. The stuff that's happening here in the middle, that's wisdom, that's insight. Okay? You've heard the author say, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, but listen to this one too. There's also another beginning. Do not forsake her, and she will keep you. Love her, and she will guard you. The beginning of wisdom is this. Get wisdom. Like, I can just see the author almost frustrated. Like, I don't even know how to tell you this. Like, you got to want it. You got to want to learn. And so here's my advice to you all about how to survive in the AI world right now. Well, first of all, there are two ways to use AI. We talk about this in my classes. I'll try to go through this quickly. You know a field well, and you have strong critical thinking skills because you haven't cognitively offloaded to AI. You use AI to do grunt work that's secondary to your main work. You said, well, Mr. Hange, like you've been talking about AI, but you also say you use AI extensively. Yes, I do. So I know extensively how to teach students phrasal verbs, English students. You guys probably don't know what that is, and that's okay. You don't need to. And I have to explain it to my students in a way that they can understand. These are things like hang out, give up, these two-word combinations that when you put them together, are very hard for English learners to grasp, right? I know exactly which ones I want to teach. Now I want to create some exercises to help the students work those. It would take me about an hour and a half to do, like to write a good story that has them in, to write a few questions that has them in. I know these things very well. It doesn't hurt my critical thinking to go to Claude and say, hey, I'm giving you this list of phrasal verbs with these meanings, and I need you now to go ahead and produce an exercise that looks like this for me. Claude spits it out. I don't accept it wholesale because sometimes it's wrong about some of the things it does. And so I read through it, I edit, I make adjustments, and in about 15 minutes, I'm done with what would take me an hour and a half to do, which is fine because I don't get paid for that prep time for this class I'm teaching in the evenings, right? So, like, that's a great use of AI. I thought deeply about what I wanted to teach my students, and I had AI do the grunt work. AI music. What I want is for digital audio workstations to get to this point. I hope it's soon, where I can stand in front of a keyboard and lay down a bass groove and go dun, 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 and say, okay, now repeat that for me 16 times, increase the volume and intensity of the, I don't know, the square wave or whatever by this percentage over the next 16 measures. Like, that would be really cool. And just for me to speak out, because digital audio workstations are such a pain to use, right? Like, this would be, like, these are valid uses of AI. Adam is an artist. So I did not ask Adam today if I could use him for an example. But Adam would be able to query AI to produce a whole lot better looking charts than I did because I don't know art. Because I don't know art, this is the garbage I can get AI to do, and that's about it. But because Adam knows art, because he's done it by hand, he can intelligently query AI to make it do the thing. How do you get good at using AI? And believe me, most of you will have to use it in your jobs. And people say, well, shouldn't I be training you to use it now? No, and yes. I am training you to use AI by insisting you do not use it, so that you have the thing that is above what AI can do, so that you can be competitive in the future and you can use it to augment your work by doing the grunt work. Do you see the difference between that and just saying, oh, AI, produce this image for me? Probably if I'd been a little more creative, I would have asked Adam to produce something for me and shown you the difference, right? Or yeah, to produce something by hand and produce something with you querying the AI. That would be an interesting comparison. It would be a really interesting comparison. Anyway, okay. Sorry, back to this. Where was I? I really don't have time to be lost in my slides. Okay, the second way is abdication. And this is what I believe AI gives us the ability to do more than any other tool. Listen, the tool of the tractor came about, and farmers didn't abdicate their responsibility to feed people and work the fields. The tractors enabled them to do a better job. They still had to know about crop rotation. They still had to know how to deal with insects. They still had to know, but this is the first time we've been given a tool that basically says, oh, just have it do it, right? If you abdicate your thinking to AI, you are unmarketable. If you use AI this way, fully marketable. This way, unmarketable. Okay? Abdicate or augment. Those are your two choices. I didn't get that from anywhere, by the way. Those are my two A words there. Really cool alliteration. I think I could make a YouTube video out of that. And that's an original thought on my part. Anyway, our brave new world is going to be, I think, divided into the haves and have-nots. And I'm going to give you some options here, and this is where I might run afoul of Calvary territory. One, the have-nots tend to cheat their way through learning. They get called out by AI. They can't pass a job interview or maybe last a week at their jobs. They're going to struggle to find full-time work, and when they do, it doesn't pay well. Okay? That's what your piece of paper diploma is going to do for you. So this is now the statement. If you're here at Calvary and you're just after the piece of paper, don't waste your money, man. I'm just telling you. I mean, you're welcome to. We're here for you. We love you. But if it's through AI use or just through doing the minimum you can to skate by, don't waste your time and money, man. You're putting yourself in the hole financially. For what? It just doesn't make sense. But I'm not really that much of a scholar, Tim. Well, okay, there's another thing that you can do. The haves are going to be people who have critical thinking capability, or they've mastered a skill that isn't necessarily in the academic sphere. Guys, go into trades. You know what? Good HVAC people right now are making six figures, right? Nursing, healthcare, start a business. You still living at home, or your parents let you live at home? You get free rent? Oh my goodness, now's the time. Take that business idea, start it. Pursue it, all right? There are ways to make your world AI-proof, and that may be it. But now let me go back to the academic route, okay? Because we do want to end here, because I do think that's important. I wouldn't be here teaching at a Christian college or university if I didn't think it was important, okay? When I came back from Russia 8 years ago, I had offers to go back into the private sector. I didn't. And I didn't do this for a reason. Commit yourself to learning. Okay? Commit yourself to doing that hard work. Don't say, I'm just going to wait till the night before and write this paper. Listen, you write the paper not for the reader. Jordan Peterson does a great job of explaining this. You write the paper for you. You write the paper because it helps you organize your thoughts and think about what you really believe about a thing, right? Go above and beyond. Dedicate yourself to a field. Focus on a thing. And never offload to AI while you're in this phase. Develop your critical thinking. And I hear people say, but then they won't know how to use AI when they get out. You know how long it took me to use AI? From not using AI, do you know how long it took me to use AI to augment my work? By the first night, I pretty well had it. I'd say 2 weeks, I had it pretty well down. Because if you're a critical thinker, that's not the hard part. The hard part is banging your head against the work and doing the work. So I would encourage you, figure it out. You either want to do the work and be here and have more to offer than the average, or go do something else. I've advised students like that. Okay, what about ministry? This is a super important one. I think I can get this done in 2 minutes, and then we'll close. I want to take a couple questions if we have time, and then we'll close. Okay, Jesus said to them, therefore, every scribe instructed concerning the kingdom of heaven is like a householder, or a master of a house, who brings out of his treasure. Say that with me. Brings out of his treasure. Your treasure. Not the treasure that somebody else has learned, right? If it was talking about the Scripture only, it would say the treasure of Scripture. It says his treasure, the hard-fought lessons you've learned and applied to your life from the Scripture. Those are your treasure. That's what you have to share. And I think this applies doubly for you guys. Don't you dare use AI to write your sermons. Okay? Let it format? Sure. Do the church bulletin, give it the information? Sure. Make it look prettier? Sure. Whatever. All that grunt work, no problem. But when it comes to the hard work of you learning a lesson from Scripture and you sharing it with people so that they can be transformed by it, don't offload that to AI. Yeah. Yeah, a companionship thing. I think that's going to have to wait for another talk. This is big, guys. This is real because I don't know if you know. I heard a figure, and I need to double check her figure. But Yevgenia, I forget her last name, who's the CEO of Replica, made the statement that 40% of AI use right now is actually in therapeutic chatbots. Okay, this is a big deal, and I have been on Reddit forums and been watching videos this week of people whose lives have been taken over by their addiction to the perfect companion who's always there for them, never argues with them, always validates them. It can be very addicting, right? So we can do this another time. I'm curious, does anybody have any questions right now? I think we have a few minutes. And then, or Josh, are you supposed to be doing this part? Sorry. Okay, you're cool. All right. I'd like to field a couple questions, and then at 5 till I can shut us off. If you can't think of a question, just pull out your phone. Claude's there. He can help you. Thoughts, comments?
Well, I like how you brought up AI creating like sermons, because I never even would have thought of that.
AI creating what?
Sermons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I never would have even thought of that.
Yeah.
That was very insightful.
Oh, sorry. He liked about the fact that AI, thinking about AI creating sermons, be on the lookout for them. Unfortunately, this is more rampant in preaching than you might imagine.
What do you think about using AI during your personal devotions?
How?
Like maybe reading a lesson from them on a certain subject, or like getting information about like what happened in the time of Jesus or something like that.
This is why I'm a little leery of it. So first of all, it can be helpful, because what AI is doing is it's taking everything that has been said about the topic and giving you an average of it. And sometimes that average is really helpful to learn. I didn't get into this, but like my literature discussion with the AI, querying it back and forth and asking it to challenge my assumptions was actually very helpful, even though it's just doing this mechanically. What you're getting is probably mostly true and could be all true in terms of it being an average of what Christian thinkers have thought about a topic. However, what scares me is the training. Because I think a lot of these companies come from a very secular viewpoint. And I've already encountered this, where they've clearly trained their bots to give you answers that align with a particular social worldview, right? And if anything you say runs counter to that, your bots are probably going to favor things like universalism, for example, right? Because they're trained to, right? So be careful of that. And remember, the average human thought on this is not necessary. But could you have it query, like, say, hey, give me everything that John Piper may have said about this topic and kind of like what his stance is? The problem is, too, the hallucination is still there. Like, it still does that from time to time. And so you can't fully, sometimes I try that with AI, and then I still have to go out to Google and check. All right, did he really say that? Was that really his position? And sometimes it's not quite there. So yeah, I would be a little bit cautious about that. Any other thoughts or comments? Yeah?
Is there a way that we can possibly tell whether something is like written out by AI, like if there's a specific like word process pattern that it writes
Okay. Thank you for bringing that one up. That's also the hard thing. This is one of the reasons why I stopped trying to chase you guys down. None of you have done it to me this year, I don't think. Maybe you have and you've gotten away with it, I don't know. I've stopped trying to chase down because it is impossible to tell. You might be thinking, haha, that gives me the power. Sure, it does. It gives you the power to silently do this stuff without getting caught and wreck your brain. And that's what you have to decide now. The ball is in your court. Because I've tried. Believe me, I tried. I tried all sorts of AI detectors, and I would take stuff that I know that a student did not do, and I would get false positives. I would take stuff that I would take stuff and AI generated, feed it to detectors, and it wouldn't quite catch all of it, but usually it trended right. But then you can take your output, guys, and then you can feed it back into ChatGPT or Claude and say, make this undetectable by an AI detector. If you do several cycles of that, you can get it pretty good to where it's not going to trigger it. So I can either spin all my cycles doing that, or I can say, this is the world we live in. It's your job to learn. You figure it out. I do have a line item on my rubric where I say, if it sounds machine-made, I ding you quite harshly for it. And people say, people might say, well, I didn't use AI. I'm like, well, I know you didn't, but it sounds like it. And because people don't like mechanical text too. AI's going to, anyway, so I don't know. I hope that answers your question. There's no real way, is the short answer. No real way. Maybe one more, yeah? Yeah.
And I also know that AI videos are getting better and better to the
Mhm.
point that you can't even tell the difference
Yep.
over time if the software is good enough. What do you think the future of the courtroom is going to look like?
The future of the courtroom, and I'll even take that up larger, the future of truth is at stake. Because unfortunately, even though we know that deep fake is very easy to accomplish right now, when we hear it or when we see it, it still has a visceral impact on us. There was a case in Baltimore a few months back where a principal said a lot of racist things and was caught on audio, allegedly on somebody's phone, saying all these racist things during a staff meeting. And it sounded fairly real, except that experts came in and analyzed it and also figured out who leaked it and discovered that the whole thing was created by an angry employee. The news ran with the story. It was too good to verify. And they even said, look, we can't verify this, but if this is true, how do you feel about it as a parent? And they were stirring up so unfortunately, the need for our media to have something toxic and sensational that they can share, combined with deepfake, is very problematic. This is going to affect courtroom evidence. This is going to affect, and people say, but you can detect it. You can now. It's going to be a lot harder. So yeah, that's kind of bleak. All right, I probably should wrap this up. I think it's maybe reasonable for a human to get to the cafe in 3 minutes. If you're really hungry and you're one of these athletes, you might be able to pull it off. Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity to think biblically about our world. Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity to be in this world and face problems and challenges. And I know that sounds strange, but your scripture says, basically, do not be surprised when you face challenges or temptations and hardships of every kind, as if something strange is happening to you. Lord, the very obstacle that is before us, the very obstacle that you have allowed to be before us, is the way for us to learn to trust you more and to reflect your image better by using our minds, by committing ourselves to truth, and by becoming the people, Lord, that you would have us to be. Make us, Lord, resilient. Make us wise. Let us lead as Christians in the area of thinking. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.